gone.
All right, we are back live and on the air, this being the Senate Institutions Committee Chapter 2 for today being March 9th, 2021. We are moving ahead to Section 1 on the spreadsheet. These are specifically lines 23 through 39. I had noticed that there were no allocations that were requested for fiscal years 22 and 23. But there are allocations far out in 24 and 20 through 31. So I'm trying to get my head around why that would be, and perhaps between Jeremy Stevens and Eric Philcorn, you two gentlemen can enlighten us as to what's going on there. And you're both muted.
All right. That's good.
Losing on buzzer.
Although I was reading Eric's lips there for a minute. You liked that lunch at the Free House restaurant, I understand.
You were starting to make sense, Eric.
I did. Eric Philcorn, Department of Buildings and General Services, and I did in fact spend a couple of days of the legislative break in beautiful Burke and Lyndonville. So I chanced upon a senator while having lunch, and it was a pleasure to see him. You are an excellent host, sir.
You cut any
Very
deals?
glad you came and spent money in our town.
Did you get a pay raise out of it or something? What'd you do?
No, I was just having lunch with my daughter. We were just trying to get a little lettuce in ourselves. We were up there ski racing, or she was ski racing.
How did she do, by the way?
She came in second in slalom and like 14th or so in GS. So pretty good. Yeah, it was a high school team.
And you came first in lunch?
I came first and I came for lunch and several rounds of snacks at was it Cafe Loti up the hill there?
Cafe Loti, yep.
Yeah, they got pretty sick of me.
Yeah, he texted me to let me know he was in town, but he did that after he had already ordered lunch. Otherwise,
This is not my first rodeo, sir.
He was going to pick up a tab,
yeah. So what's going on with these lines?
So by statute, we are required to deliver a 10-year plan each biennium. And these this last group of projects are projects that are intended for after this biennium, but we do account for them in our, as I said, 10-year plan. So we as a department are always thinking about what's next, what roof is going to go, what boiler is going to go, what building might we need down the line. And we evaluate them on our side and set our priorities. And then we bring our priorities to the governor actually every year, along with all the other departments. But there's a finite amount of money. And if you look at the bottom line, you'll see that we try to keep it kind of a steady burn over time. So sometimes it's a project that we realize we could wait a couple more years for. Sometimes things, like for instance, the Barry Courthouse, the courts have an interest in getting some work done there. We have some interest in getting some work done there, and getting those two projects aligned means that it might not happen until the next biennium. So there's a story for every one of these if you want to hear them.
Well, actually, yes, I would, because we're eventually going to be looking at this, and I have heard various requests for, if you talk about the Barry Courthouse, for instance, money that's needed now versus money that's needed later. And I'm trying to get a handle on how you think through the process of what you need when. And this committee will eventually be looking at the numbers as you come back and request us more. The glaring part of it for me was that there was goose eggs for the next 2 fiscal years, and then all of a sudden money is appearing. So I'm hearing at the same time that the Barry Courthouse needs to have work done on it, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, where is that all fitting in? But yeah, I would like to go through item by item and get a little spiel on what each one is on the list for.
Okay. Well, would you like us to share the spreadsheet or?
Yeah, I'd be happy to have you do that for the benefit of those folks who are not in possession of one of those spreadsheets.
Indeed. It might keep us all on the same page. Denise, do you want to pull that up, or do you want to give me guest host privileges and I'll try and figure it out. Denise. Or we could just start talking.
Sometimes she's hearing you and doing something.
Oh, there she
Here,
is.
but-
Okay, hi.
Hi, I'm here and everything, but there, you've got the
Host has disabled
co-host, so you
screen.
should be able to pull it right up there.
There it goes. Let's see. Make sure I'm not giving you my email. And that should do it. Are you all seeing the
We will be.
spreadsheet?
We will
We
be. in a
will be
minute.
momentarily because it says you're about to put it up on the screen.
I'm gonna move it down,
There
you
you go.
try and line it up. Okay, the way out years are out of frame, but I think we're still in pretty good shape. You can see what we got here. Actually, I'm gonna click back one so we can get to the line numbers.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, do you want me to do this or do you want to jump in? I don't want to be proprietary about it. Maybe I'll start off and Jeremy, you jump in if you want to add or.
I'm
take a
happy to
couple.
be bench candy here for you,
Okay.
Eric, until you need
All
me.
right. This makes up for him playing the part of the commissioner a couple of weeks ago.
Are
So
you able to increase the size of that screen or should I go get my binoculars?
let's see. How's that? Did that get bigger?
I
No.
didn't
Nope.
see anything happen.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, lower it down a
Okay.
little bit so we can go up the top.
Okay. So now.
So I wanted to start on line 23 because that's where I saw the goose eggs in the second and third columns.
Okay, right. So Pittsburgh, the Fire and Police Academy renovation of the main building. I don't know how many of you have had the pleasure to visit this historic structure, but the main building is sagging in places. It has knob and tube wiring. It has a boiler that may have qualified for installation on the Lusitania. Their heating system's very old. It's a big dragon under the cafeteria. And
Sounds like you're describing my house.
well, it's a building in Vermont that people sleep in, so it has that in common.
That's 12, is that $12 million or is that 12,000?
I'm betting it's million. Yeah, I think it's.
Jesus, how the hell you guys spend so much money on something? God, I could build half the town of Colchester for 12 million bucks.
You you don't have it already, sir?
God,
So there are three structures that are connected. There's East Cottage, West Cottage, and then the main building, which has the cafeteria, most of the dorm space, classrooms. The West Cottage has been renovated. The East Cottage is gutted and will be renovated starting this construction season. And the committee that oversees the facility, which is a mix of police and fire and a bunch of folks, are doing a study of the building to figure out exactly how they're going to use it going forward. So rather than going in and bashing up the place, we want to see, what their end use is going to be for it before we start actually tearing it up. But it is going to be a major renovation, and I believe it references a heat plant there because one of the ideas right now is to take the heating plant out of the basement of the main building and build a central plant that'll serve all of the buildings on the campus, or at least all of those in the immediate vicinity of that building. So there will be more on that once they complete the study phase.
Do you know how old that building is, the police academy?
No, I don't. Old enough.
we've been
Yeah, I have a story about that building, the 1980s. When the police cadets came, the Defender General's office used that building as the location of the Defender General's training. So we had the cadets and the drunk from the night before lawyers all meeting at the same time in the cafeteria. It's a real comical experience with the cadets having to do square meals and marching in at attention and all that. And we just come stumbling in from the night before, and it's a funny story for another day, but that building's been around a while.
I remember my first road trip with Brian Searles down to cut a ribbon in Rutland or something like that. And on the way back, he said, I got to take you to the academy. I got to take you on a tour. He was very proud of the place. There's a lot of history under that roof.
Yep.
That is sagging just a little bit in the middle. So, so that's the latest on the police academy. 133 to 109 State Street Tunnel. Have you all been in the tunnel?
No.
Yes.
So underneath the front lawn of your state house is a tunnel. It goes from the basement of 133 State Street through the basement of the Supreme Court and connects with 109 State Street. So you can actually go from the tax department to the governor's office without seeing the light of day. The tunnel is there because many years ago, steam lines were replaced and they had to tunnel anyway to do it. And they made it large enough for humans to traverse. And so in the dead of winter, when it's wicked cold, you see a lot of staff going back and forth under there. What you also see is a lot of water coming down the walls on either side. And we've gone to some lengths to waterproof it over the years, but it does need a little bit of help. We also need to repave Aiken Avenue at some point. And because the tunnel runs under Aiken Avenue, we've grouped those projects together so that we don't fix the tunnel and then dig up Aiken Avenue again. So that is why those are clustered and why they're still a few years out. It's not an emergency, but it will need to be done eventually. That tunnel carries steam lines, it carries fiber optics. It's a major communications and utility hub.
So these dollars are based on today. Are you anticipating no increase in that need by the time you get to 24?
Actually, Jeremy, when we were coming up with these numbers, calculated both bond premium and inflation into our target figures. It's obviously, we're still looking many years out, but that it's not necessarily in today's dollars. We were looking into the future, right, Jeremy?
That's correct. We were advised to include 3.5% of inflation per year and a bond fee of about 1.3% on average.
Okay, so you don't anticipate things like architects and design work costing a lot more money by the time we get there?
Well, did you see the architect design way up top? There was like 14, what the hell was it here? It was $7 million.
Yeah.
That's Jeremy's salary.
God, we can hire architects and design people full time for years.
Yeah.
Blows my mind the money. Oh,
Yeah, okay. So we're being facetious here, but we're going to hold you to it 4 years down the road from now when you're looking to get this money back.
Well, we take the best shot we can from where we are, and we like to think that we are improving our aim over time.
Okay.
The tunnel, 110 State Street, elevator, exterior restoration, and access. So are you all familiar with 110 State Street? That's where John Campbell sits these days. It's right
No.
across from the pavilion on the corner, old brick building. I think it used to be Union Mutual Insurance way back when. This is a
Giving him an elevator?
Huh?
You're giving Campbell an elevator?
Well, right now he has an elevator, but it's a lot like the elevator in the Supreme Court building. It's not ADA compliant. It's not maybe the most reliable elevator in our fleet. And the building is an old building that's chopped up in funny ways in order to accommodate offices. The exterior window casings are made of cast iron and painted with lead paint. And so it is a major challenge to paint it and to get the exterior back. It also needs a roof. And so the proposal at this point is to, almost like the backside of 120, build an external stair tower with an elevator shaft down the middle to deal with all of those egress issues. And that'll also open up the building so we can use the space more efficiently.
Do you have to remove the lead paint before you repaint it?
Yep. Oh, there's, yeah. Although the reality is that in any downtown in Vermont, all you have to do is go to the garden and take a shovel of dirt, and it's probably full of lead from hundreds of years of old house. But that is, we don't want to put more in the environment, so that's what we do.
Yep.
Windsor South. Oh, yes.
No, I said, okay.
Okay. Sorry, I should pause. Windsor Southeast State Correctional Facility, demolition of unsafe, unused buildings. So this is operating on the assumption that we won't be given the authority to sell the facility, although we are requesting that in the authorities section of this bill. If we do hold on to it, there are a number of buildings on the campus that are no longer structurally sound and need to come down. There's a massive dairy barn. I believe the grain elevators need to come down. The creosote shop, a couple other outbuildings, we just need to clean them up because they are a potential hazard. So we would prefer not to have to spend that money. Southeast State Correctional Facility costs us a lot of money just to keep it mothballed. And we don't have a lot of use for it at the moment. So, but if we do keep it, we need to spend that money down the line. Any questions? This is great. We're playing Stump the Band. Montpelier State House Structurally Repairs, Design and Construction. So when we did the series project and all of that work on the dome, we had a structural engineer look at the building. And what they found was that our snow load rating is not sufficient on the roof. And Joe rattled off some numbers about how far off we are, but basically in the not too distant future, it would behoove us to reinforce the roof. I had heard at first that it was only over the house chamber, but now that I know it is over the whole building, I think maybe we ought to invest in that. So what that involves is actually removing blocks from the front of the building and inserting girders underneath the roof to reinforce it. It's not a small project, but it's more surgical in nature.
Sounds very expensive.
Yeah, let me, can't remember.
So this $1,273,000, is that actually for construction or is that just for design?
Let me see. I'm having trouble reading my own homework
I'm gonna
here.
be a designer in my next life.
Yeah.
I don't know. Grocer's been pretty good to you, sir.
Oh, I'm telling you, these figures scare me.
1,273,000. Well, that is the, Jeremy, I'm pretty sure that's the total project cost, but
I
it
hope
actually
so.
feels a
Mr.
little
Chair,
low.
if I may, you do see it in the out years, which isn't currently on your screen, but about $109,000, if I remember correctly, for design.
Oh, okay.
In I can't remember which out year it was, and then construction dollars to follow.
Okay.
I would imagine that project would cost a heck of a lot more than $1.2 million.
This is an interesting one, just in terms of process, because usually where BGS is left to estimate project costs on our own, but because we had that analysis performed by a structural engineer, this number is generated from that analysis.
Okay.
Okay.
This is why I brought the smart one with me. All right, where were we? State House. So now we'll go up to Newport, the Northern State Correctional Facility. Or is it Northwest?
No, that's the correct spelling.
Yep.
I hope you get for $5 million, you get more than a boiler.
So we have a number of boilers up in Newport. One of them is a chunk wood boiler that is currently, as available, loaded by inmates under guard.
Good.
And it's been harder and harder to get good help on that particular work detail. There are also a couple of oil boilers that are coming up coming up on about 20 years. So it is more than one boiler that is being replaced in that process. But what I think we're learning is that the inmate-driven boiler is not the best use of resources at this point. So again, that's a few years out. But. Okay.
Okay.
I will take your silence as I've either stunned you or you're
I'm gonna stay a shock, so go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for line 36. I think we have to revive them.
I'm kind of surprised that the inmate workers aren't apparently living up to snuff. You'd think with a captive audience, you have a ready workforce.
Right.
I don't know.
You would infringe on their rights.
I love moving firewood myself. It's one of my favorite activities. But
It's an interesting
so
life
Barry.
they lead.
Well, he doesn't
Very
do anything during the week, so you got to work on weekends.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Doing the people's work. And that brings us to Barry, which in many ways is two projects at once, because the Barry Courthouse is a dual use building. It's a courthouse and it's also a state office building. And when it was built, it was intended to be cooled by summer breezes. That's why it was at an angle to the street. But in reality, what's happened is we've had to put a window shaker every other window, and it is coming of age where it needs some updates just as an office building in general. Also, over time, the security situation has evolved and the space is not laid out properly to provide appropriate security for the judges. There's not appropriate separation of the detainees coming into the building. And so Judiciary is looking for a sally port and an extension of a hallway and some other subdivision pieces to make it work more efficiently for their operations. And then BGS has interest in renovating some of the office spaces, and then also just a big mechanical overhaul. Because right now it doesn't have central air, it doesn't have the basic features of a modern office building. And so a study has been completed. I believe, I don't know if it's conceptual design, but I've seen layouts and elevations and the like. So this was just a matter of getting everything aligned, and I think that is now set to go in the next biennium, right? Let's go over here. All right, we start Barry Courthouse. Yeah, so Jeremy, we'd be starting design first year of the next biennium, and then construction the 2 years following.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Add a little bit of clarification.
Sure.
I did have to find a home for this once we found out that it wasn't going to be, the judiciary's request wasn't going to be included in the governor's recommend. And so we knew it was going to be in the out years. We don't know exactly where, and where it best fit in our current spending plan was FY 24, 25, and 26, with the plan to design in FY 24, and then the construction funds being so large, having to split those up over FY 25 and 26. The caveat here is that we probably don't want to go until we know that Judiciary's project is funded.
Okay, for some reason or other, I recall testimony in committee from Judiciary about the need for these projects probably 3 or 4 years ago. I thought we had done some work towards the Sally Port and the judge entrance. Am I wrong in that? There has been nothing done, or has there been something done and now we're just looking out further along the way?
There has been work done on paper. I have seen, I'm always hesitant to characterize types of designs. But there at least is I'll call it probably incorrectly, and Joe Asia would beat me up, but a conceptual design where there are at least pictures of where the Sally Port would go, where the hallway improvements are, and you know, just a very high level exploration of how the project would go forward. So not nothing. I don't know if you call it a study or.
But other than that, there's been no physical construction on the facility?
No, we've looked at some short-term fixes, I think, in terms of, I recall recently hearing a discussion about trying to change some doorways or modify a hallway. We are talking about the security concerns. It's very difficult because of where the judges' chambers are relative to just the physical layout of the building.
Okay.
Yeah. We love all our children, but there is a line for the buffet, as it were.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, the reason that I'm having you in to talk about all of this is I've, through the years, been hearing conversation about various things that are on this list. And somewhere along the way, I was assuming that work was being done. And when I see that the requests are looking familiar and nothing has been done, nothing is planned to be done, that is where I start to get a little concerned. It's kind of like talking about Bobby Starr needing a new agricultural committee.
Oh, hang on. I have to put a hash mark on my Bobby Starr list. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
let's keep going.
I certainly understand, sir. Certainly appreciate your comment. Where are we? So Barry Courthouse, 133 State Street windows. This is another historic building with large old windows. They're the kind with the pulleys and the weights and all of that. Because it's a historic structure, the windows are expensive by nature. We have gotten agreement with the good people at Historic Preservation that we're allowed to install newer profile windows on the upper floors of the backside of the building, but we still need to adhere to the historic profile of the front of the building. And this is a project that is, you know, necessary, not an emergency, but we don't want to lose sight of it. And so it's still a few years out, but we are planning to do that work.
Okay.
Montpelier O&M maintenance shop. Right now, if you were to go to most of our correctional facilities, you'd find outside the wire a nice garage where we park our plow truck and we keep all our tools and all of our people work. In the Capitol complex, we are spread out over 3 or 4 different basements for plumbing, electrical. Our main paint and carpentry shop is in a old garage behind 120 State Street. They don't even have a bathroom. And it has long been the dream of BGS that we would have a centralized maintenance facility in the Capitol complex. But the cobbler's children have no shoes, and so we've kicked that can a few times. Our commissioner is quite intent on taking care of her people, and so that one is up to bat in the next couple of bunch of years. But that's why that's in there. I mean, it's really efficient for us to have to zigzag all over the complex to do what most of our other facilities can do under one roof. So that's why that's in there. And finding a place in the Capitol complex and getting through the Capitol Complex Commission with something like that will probably take some time. Springfield, Southeast State Correctional Facility Biomass Plant. This is another
You skipped over Randolph on
Oh, I
line
did.
32.
Sorry, okay. Randolph Center, Vale, that's the Vermont Agriculture and Environmental Lab, which opened a few years ago. The project evolved as it was built. Originally, there was going to be a boiler room, some other facilities, and when all was said and done, there wasn't really sufficient space for the maintenance facility. We wound up connecting to the Vermont Technical College heat plant. A couple other things changed, and right now our people are working out of a shipping container in the parking lot, and we would like to have a proper maintenance facility for them at some point. They don't have enough room for their equipment to operate effectively.
So what's the difference between this one and line 34?
Line 34 was part of the original long-term plan for the construction of the Vale, the shared heat plant. So the original conversation was around constructing a more modern, biomass heat plant for the college and the Vale. Ultimately, we wound up hooking on to their existing system, and that's working fine so far. But at some point, that equipment is going to age out, and we want to look at a shared facility. But we also know that state college planning is probably in a little bit of flux with what's going on with COVID and other economic conditions. So we don't want to rush into that, but we do want to keep that on the radar.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then the biomass plant in Springfield. Right now, the correctional facility is running off of a dual fuel propane / oil system. We know that in the long term, propane is probably not our best choice for fuel. And so when that system ages out, we wanted to look at replacing it with whatever made the most sense at that point. So another, looking down the road and accounting for that potential expenditure in out years. We haven't even done the study to figure out what kind of facility would replace it, but we know that that'll come at some point. So, and Tay Southworth can come in and talk about all kinds of heat plants and systems and the like, if you really want to go deep.
Not this year.
Not this year, okay. That's why it's in the out years. Randolph, 133 State Street, refit of vacant space on the basement level. So I know the Senate sometimes caucuses down in the BGS conference room in the basement of 133 State Street. There used to be a cafeteria down there. When ADS was in the building, they had a number of conference rooms. What we're interested in doing at some point is a minor refit of the basement level to make sure that all of the conference facilities are up to snuff. It's our policy not to put employees permanently below grade, which is why Bobby Starr will not be setting up in the Marble Palace anytime soon. But the 133 basement is really prime real estate for meeting facilities, and we wanted to make it available to, when AOT has a transportation conference or something like that, just to have a good collection of conference rooms in a single space. We think that's the highest best use for that part of that building.
Don't let Bobby know about your policy about below grade. We're trying to keep him thinking the right way.
Okay. Aye, sir. 133, 109 HVAC exterior shell improvements. That's a big one. 109 State Street is a historic structure built, I think, during the Nixon administration. The HVAC system is of similar vintage, just like your State House. I think the addition was built in 1984. The building is long in the tooth. The insulation is 3.5 inches of the pink stuff. The boilers and the air handlers are laid out in such a way that there's like one system that controls a section of it from the first through the fifth floor. So it's old. It needs work. It needs a lot of work. It's going to be expensive, and we realize we can't afford to do it now, but we need to keep that on the books to remember that that's something we need to address at some point. And so,
Well, how would you phase that in? Do you break it down like 5 million for the boilers, or or is that total package that you got to come up with?
well, we would phase it over. You can see most of it is in the way out years, the 25 and beyond. But the building shell needs attention. So once you open up the shell, you might as well do the air handlers, you might as well do the other pieces, but it would probably be phased over a couple of years, maybe floor by floor. Again, it's so far out, we've talked about it, but we don't have anything seriously on paper about exactly how it would be phased. We just know these things need to happen. And at some point we'd have to kick a governor out of their office for a while we do that floor, which would be a challenging exercise. And think about that. And the treasurer, and yeah, there'd be a lot of interesting shuffling about. So way out in the future is a much better view of it from here.
Okay.
Swanton paving the perimeter road at the correctional facility up there. That's a really long road. It's I think over a mile. And we know that has to happen eventually. But again, we have that slated way out in the future. Obviously, there are a lot of conversations going on around correctional facilities, and no point in getting too far in front of the horse or the cart or however that goes with the road, but we know eventually we'll need to do that. So that's on there.
Yep.
I have a question, just because some of these costs look high, but I figure this is one where Senator Mazza can speak to. Is repaving even a 2 mile long road cost $2 million? I mean, if you do a rebuild, right?
Well, it all depends how far down you're going to go. If you're going to go down, and rebuild it from the foot up. If you just put a top layer on, hell no, you could do that for less than half that. But that determines how far down you're going with the base.
Right. Or if there even is a base to begin with.
Yeah, if there's a base to begin with, once you do that, you got drainage, water problems, and you run into a whole bunch of stuff. But they've got some pretty good stuff out there now. It's ground asphalt, and it packs like concrete almost, and people are using it because it works with the weather. Very inexpensive, and it's not a real pave, but it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, well, it's always changing. They're finally doing Route 2 through Richmond, I think next year or the following year, and it's another one of those sections where they have the concrete slabs underneath that they're going to have to pulverize. Big fat mess, and a lot of learning as they go through every mile of it to
Take it down and chop it up.
Yeah. Pavement's expensive. Every time somebody new moves to my neighborhood, there's always that moment where someone comes to the select board and says, why don't you pave the road? We have to explain it to them again. The perimeter road. Montpelier State House, back in your house, the mist system design and construction. So, good night, sir. You have a degree of fire suppression protection with sprinkler systems in the building, but there are still some voids, and the mist system is type of sprinkler system that is installed in museum settings, because we really don't want the sprinklers to go off and have them squirt a fire hose worth of water at the Cedar Creek mural. So a couple of our more precious parts of the State House, we would like to protect the collection with something a little more advanced. So that's not a terribly large project, but it's still out a couple of years. And then the complex conversion from steam to hot water. Jeremy, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I'm sorry. I just realized my video was off there. I'd lost comms for a little bit here, but looks like I'm back now. I think you can all hear me okay.
I'd just like to give you a reason to have shown up.
Okay, you can hear me okay. Perfect.
Although you make half the money he does, that's all right.
Right. Plus, yeah, but he's a lot harder to fire.
I should probably make sure I'm still receiving a paycheck, actually. Remind me.
No, this one, Joe explained to us in great detail, and I know Jeremy's recall is better. So
basically, the Montpelier Complex Heat Plant currently delivers steam to each of our facilities, and that's working fine. The problem with steam is that you then have to pump condensate back to the heat plant and then dispose of that condensate, right? So it's more mechanics, more of a process. And the system is aging, right? So eventually we're going to need to provide some additional reno there. Excuse me. So the conversion would be to convert the steam to hot water at the plant and then deliver hot water to each facility. So then you eliminate the return of condensate back to the facility and all the mechanical processes that go with that. This is a large project because it would be a conversion at each state complex facility that is currently utilizing steam.
But it still does a wood chip plant, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't change.
Correct. That does not change.
No, because
It would just be a conversion of the.
We did that just a few years ago. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of our buildings have actually already been converted over to hot water. So it's a slow migration, but at some point there will be a part of the project that's going to be a little bit bigger, not quite so incremental. And that is this biennium's version of the 10-year plan.
I have some
Well-
private enterprise people who want to build you guys a courthouse up here at Newport and lease it back to you. And we put it in our little hole that we have up here, and that would be a good anchor building. So when you guys are ready, and then I'll take those other two buildings and we'll convert those into housing. So anyways, that's my pitch for Newport and putting a courthouse in for the state and taking the two old courthouses and put them into affordable housing. So let me know when you're ready. Let me know when you're ready for that.
Yeah. Actually, I had always thought the old courthouse would be a great, like a boutique hotel with a blues club in the courtroom.
We could do that.
Or jazz, or
We could do that.
okay. Speaking of anchors.
Well, they need a UPS store up there, so.
I don't think they do. That's been settled.
All right, Jeremy, Eric, thank you very much for coming. I'm sure we'll be hearing back from me when we go back up to lines 1 through 20.
Back tomorrow, I guess. Sir, I think Senator McCormick has his hand up.
Yeah. Thank you, I do. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, I've been feeling a little bit guilty here letting Senator Mazza be the only one who makes comment about how expensive planning seems to be. And we often, it seems to me we're almost laughing him off. He's just being an old curmudgeon, but I think he's right. And I just wanted to add that. I find it hard to accept how much money we spend where there's not anything actually to show for it. And I'd like us to look more deeply into that.
It's been an ongoing conversation. I'm not sure how unless we actually hire official planners, but then you'd have to have so many that cover all your bases. I'm not sure we'd be saving much money, but it certainly has been an ongoing conversation since I've been on this committee.
Yeah.
The planning, architectural design, awful lot of money going out the window on those categories. But
That's my 2 cents worth for the day.
yeah, well, we're all members, I'm afraid, of the cranky curmudgeon club.
We could do a study on why studies cost so much.
Yeah. All right.
You're welcome,
can we,
sir.
Can we take down the PowerPoint? We can all see each other again.
Oh, all right. Let me stop share. There we go. I'm still here.
All right, we're going to be back again tomorrow to pick up the conversation on other places. In fact, we're going to be doing that all week, committee. I am at this moment completely unsure of when we're going to get the capital bill. I had assumed it was going to be on the 19th, but apparently this bill is not included in that cutoff date. So I have no idea when we're actually going to get it, but I suspect that when we do, we're going to have a lot more work in front of us as the numbers become a lot clearer for who's been hit, who hasn't been hit, and why we need to change whatever the House has decided to do if we need to do any changing.
At least we got a goal to work towards, once you get
Yes.
the numbers.
The past few weeks have been nothing but trying to assemble the basics and get everybody on the same page as far as who the players are and what the expectations are of the people that have been presenting to us, but it becomes a lot more detailed as the next few weeks go on. I'm going to try, since we have a chairs meeting today, I'm going to try to get an answer as to when we are actually looking at getting the capital bill over from the other side.
We have a chairs meeting, what time?
5 o'clock is what I've been told.
Yeah,
Push it back an hour.
I haven't been told yet. You got numbers on that?
I don't.
Okay, all right.
Well, actually, I do on my my email. I don't know if you know how to do that yet.
No, I'm not that smart.
Email.
Okay. All right. For today's purposes, though, Jeremy, Eric, thank you very much for coming to join us this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having us.
And committee,
Mr. Chairman, before we leave, I want
Yes,
to
sir.
congratulate Senator Parent on this is probably the first time in his life that he has been referred to as an old curmudgeon.
he's going to have to get used to it.
Yeah.
Eventually.
You can't see it from here, but the beard is getting some white in it.
That's
He
the
is still one
powdered.
of the little
That's the
kids.
powdered donut.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're one of the little kids.